When people are in fear, in danger, they sometimes shit.
Man has got to do what a man has got to do.
This is Wim Hof, an ice and breathwork guru who, by my estimation, is responsible for the deaths of 33 people.
Iceman is actually, that's my working title. Yeah, what do you do for a living? Yeah, I'm an Iceman. That's the way I'm earning money. Putting bread on the table.
There's a dark truth about Wim Hof that changes the narrative around the fastest growing breathwork technique on the planet and which the organization around him has tried to suppress.
Yes, it's an image. It's who I am, yeah, on television.
It's not only that Hof scams money from his followers and instructors, but that people have paid for his lies with their lives.
He said, "Of course it's safe, Mom. It's Wim Hof."
For more than a decade, I was Wim Hof's biographer and chief evangelist. I wrote a New York Times best-selling book about his inspirational mix of breathwork and cold exposure that put me on the bleeding edge of the ice bath craze and sold more than 300,000 copies. Along the way, I appeared on more than 300 news programs, podcasts, and newspapers preaching the gospel of Hof.
Designed to be able to deal with physical adversity. We're hardwired for that reason.
Like millions of people, I was pulled in by the legitimately astounding scientific results. A famous experiment that Hof participated in showed how cold exposure and breathwork can make changes in the body that modern medicine never believed was possible. You can learn this in like 15 minutes. You can learn this in your shower, believe it or not. And those results, they're real. I still practice the techniques that I began learning from Wim to this day. And more than that, I considered Wim Hof a friend. I tried to protect him from his own excesses and attempted time and again to draw attention inside the group, not publicly, to what I saw were dangerous teaching practices that Hof brought out into the public. But then about 2 years ago, I finally understood that I couldn't work behind the scenes anymore. The only way to correct Wim's madness and the organization's cynical attitude that values profit over the lives of their followers was to raise awareness. And if I didn't go public with Wim's dark secret, well, no one would.
I got the call that he had been in a drowning accident. I knew immediately what had happened.
I was doing some Wim Hof inspired breath hold work. I blacked out in a bliss state and I spent 4 minutes in the bottom of the pool from oxygen deprivation.
Starting in 2022, I began reporting on the stories of people who had been hurt or died by following Wim Hof's increasingly erratic and confusing breathwork instructions.
So before was hyperventilating, like what I did now. Then I felt charged. And the last one, fully out, fully in, and then going down.
It would be easy to watch any more than a dozen videos like that one that I just showed and assume that Wim Hof wants you to hyperventilate in water and then hold your breath.
Before holding my breath underwater, I'm going to do a minute of breath work.
Most people don't realize how dangerous that actually is.
And I jump in and realize he's unconscious or worse. And I pull him out and did CPR and called 911. He never came back.
I was basically just passed out when I was doing it in a pool. My heart stopped. Then they did the resuscitation. I'd been in a coma for over a week.
The more I reported on the truth, the more Wim's followers attacked me.
I immediately start doing the CPR.
Ended up having a hypoxic blackout underwater. Went unnoticed for 8 minutes.
Started doing it on his own, probably from watching YouTubes.
His followers even harassed the families of the victims and swore that I was Judas in the pantheon of Hof.
He drowned in a swimming pool full of people in 2016 as a result of doing the Wim Hof breathing exercises.
He drowned.
Bear with me for this sort of long video because there's a lot of material to cover and it only gets more bizarre as we go deeper. In it, I'm going to tell you the dark truth about Wim Hof and why I chose to throw away a lucrative career at the forefront of the ice bathing movement to pursue truth above all else. To tell this story, I need to go back in time to the first time that I met Wim Hof in 2013. I had just finished an investigative report for Playboy magazine about the dark side of meditation. I'd exposed an American monk who donned Tibetan robes and promised that his spiritual techniques would give his followers superpowers in exchange for often giving over their life savings. I had just signed a deal to make that story into a book called The Enlightenment Trap when I heard about a charismatic ice guru who was making surprisingly similar claims. At the time, Wim Hof was getting moderately well known for feats of endurance in the cold and was on the cusp of making the transition from a stuntman into a teacher of esoteric methods. I flew out to his dilapidated farmhouse in Poland with a commission to debunk him before he got famous and lured in crowds of adherents under his spell. But things didn't work out that way. Anyone who has read What Doesn't Kill Us knows that this meeting fundamentally changed my life. Instead of debunking Hof, I tried his method and was soon able to do the same things that he was. I climbed up a mountain bare-chested in shorts and spent the next few years trying to understand the science of cold and breath work, ultimately hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro with Wim and breathing in the minus 30-degree air without a shirt on.
We made it to the top, which is Gilman's Point, which is basically the top of Kilimanjaro.
It was a compelling story because I went from being a skeptic into a believer.
You ever get any really negative people who never really come to the cause?
A very good example of that. Scott Carney is an investigative journalist. He came from America to this place to cut through the crap and the charlatan business and all that. And that was me, you know, the charlatan and the crap. Took him 2 days when he converted into, hey, but this shit is good. And he was standing with us in shorts after 2 days. And now he's, he wants to write a book and bring it to America and everything.
But there was something that always worried me about Hof. I'd been dabbling in esoteric techniques since I first traveled to India and Tibet in 1998. And I knew that even the most caustic gurus bore gems of unconventional wisdom. Heck, even Michael Roach, the fake monk I exposed in my second book, taught powerful and even useful insights that could absolutely benefit some people. But the trend was almost always the same with popular gurus. Soon, they grew so wealthy and powerful that their own egos overshadowed the good that they did in the world. Eventually, people get hurt. I like to think of it this way. Even if a guru has like 80% or even 90% useful insights, that remaining 10 or 20% of bad ones can do a lot of damage. I mean, if a medicine launched into the market and cured 90% of people of a disease, but killed the remaining 10%, it would be a huge problem. And around the time that What Doesn't Kill Us came out, I was worried that maybe I had just gotten to Wim too early in his journey from inspirational figure to cult leader. And I wasn't the only one who noticed. Here's Paul Bowman, a professor of cultural studies, who was also following Wim's strange transformation.
Over time, Wim Hof has appropriated the visual trappings and the language of a kind of Oriental monk. Even though he's Dutch and even though he's white, he adopts an increasingly kind of messianic tone about himself, a kind of I'm still on the mailing lists, and there's pictures of Wim Hof, like really badly photoshopped pictures of Wim Hof sitting cross-legged, lotus position, like some kind of a guru with photoshopped kind of aura around him, projecting this image of a kind of messiah.
When I first met Wim, I was taken in by his affability and passion for exposing people to uncomfortable truths. He was focused on proving his methods in scientific experiments and didn't seem interested in the trappings of fame and money. That affability was part of the reason that so many people fell under his spell. But over time, once that fame and money landed at his feet, the trappings, they took over. He and his organization, run by his children around him, needed to promote Wim as more than just a likable and crazy stuntman. They needed a consistent brand that inflated his spiritual guru image. This marketing package took its toll on him and initiated the same personality changes that experts on cults have observed in gurus across time. To quote the seminal book on the subject, The Guru Papers, Masks of Authoritarian Power by Joel Kramer and Diana Alstead, people don't want a second-rate guru. They want the one that seems to be the best. Gurus are forced to assume the role of the highest, the best, the most enlightened, the most loving, the most selfless, the purest representative of the most profound truths. For if they do not, people will go to the one who does. Consequently, it is largely impossible for a guru to permit himself real intimacy, which in adults requires a context of equality. All his relationships must be hierarchical, since that is the foundation of his attraction. Just like Kramer and Alstead predicted, his organization stratified into an inner circle run by his children and a few select level 3 instructors who adhered closely to his brand guidelines. Meanwhile, an outer circle of instructors and hangers-on amplified the message without knowing what was happening on the inside. Maintaining proximity to Wim translated to making a lucrative living as a breathwork instructor. But people who wouldn't toe the line, they were kicked out.
So, I have sad news. The Wim Hof Method Academy is kicking me out unless I delete all my Wim Hof related videos.
Without equals, gurus ultimately isolate themselves from the people who might have previously been able to rein in their more reality-bending or dangerous ideas. As he grew more famous, Wim Hof turned away from real insights and instead leaned into the trappings of a modern guru's branding, appearing on podcasts and news programs the world over, spouting mumbo-jumbo and pseudoscientific explanations that misrepresented how his method actually worked.
I'm going to stop you right here because for a lot of people that are listening to this, they're like, what the fuck is Joe Rogan doing on this podcast?
I saw it happen with Wim in real time. And though I had no substantial financial or business connections to Hof's organization, by promoting my book, I contributed to the problem. And there are also things that I just missed. The cultural studies professor Paul Bowman noted in his research paper that Wim frequently repeats a story about his miraculous birth, where he almost died from asphyxiation in the first minutes of his life, and how his mother declared that he would be a missionary for God after he survived. But there is reason to think that Hof was systematically altering his biography to fit this guru narrative.
When you notice that each of his books has an autobiography in it, and the autobiographical details are radically different in each story, like he doesn't have one consistent biographical narrative, and it's not just the case of we sometimes get things wrong when you get dates wrong and stuff when you tell your life story. His are completely different stories across the books, and it's just it's kind of preposterous.
While reporting What Doesn't Kill Us, I was so taken by the way that my body had changed when I challenged it with cold exposure and breath work that I missed the things about the reality of his guru aura. One of the reasons that I'm finally re-releasing What Doesn't Kill Us this month with 2 new chapters and restored pages that didn't make it into the original, is that right before publication in 2017, my publisher and I caved to pressure from the Hof organization to omit key details from his biography that showed how unstable and erratic Hof could really be. Here are a few of the things that I'm bringing back. The first is what I call the fountain incident, or perhaps if you prefer, his near-fatal enema. If you've ever seen Hof shirtless, you will notice a triangular scar on his abdomen that eclipses his belly button. For reasons that I will get into soon, Wim had not seen his son Michael for 10 years and had arranged to meet him at a place called Vondel Park in Amsterdam, where there was a fountain that spurted water into the air in the middle of a small pond. He arrived early, and Wim, being Wim, decided to take a swim. And this part is so hard to believe. And so many people in the comments of my previous videos have said that I made it up, that I'm just going to play you a recording of an interview that I did with him in 2013.
Yeah, I had done it already like 100 times. You could say it is crazy or this or that. No, it's just a fountain, and I put it up my ass, and cleanses all my shit in my intestines, and you shit it out like that, and it all goes, and you feel good.
Okay. So you're giving yourself enemas at a public fountain.
Yes. Nobody sees it. You just shit it out. Nobody sees it.
Yeah, you heard it right. It was a fountain enema. But this time, just before he reconnected with his long-lost son, something was different.
So they changed the piece on the pipe.
Yeah.
And it makes, with
more power.
With water, you can slice this easily, or even stone and metal.
Absolutely.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So the more precise or concentrated the water beam, the more it looks like a knife.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So that one got through. I sat on it with my pants, but it got through my pants and through the asshole up into the intestines, and it just cut it. And I got my stomach or my intestines full, the cavity over there, full of dirty water.
A jet of water skewered Wim and almost killed him. He somehow managed to paddle back to the shore, and the first words he spoke to his son in 10 years was that he needed to go to the hospital. Now, the timing was weird on this. So I asked Wim if maybe he purposely hurt himself before his son's meeting because of a sense of guilt for not being part of his son's life. And have you already met your son, or you're about to meet your son at this point?
Yeah, I was about to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
But then
you're just going to give yourself an enema before you meet your son?
Yeah. No, I thought, I was so fucked up because of the situation. I just had to, and I thought of 15 years ago, I was always happy.
Yeah.
And okay, and doing all kinds of things in the parks, and playing around and fooling and doing crazy yoga stuff, and was always very successful, very good, very powerful, very happy, like no worries. Mm-hmm. And but at that time I was fucked up, and I thought sort of tendency to go back to that time, to that experience and clean myself.
Yeah.
So I went up there, and I see it still in front of me right now. I had a sort of doubt, but maybe it's also sort of you get a feeling you want to kill yourself, you want to end the story, but not deliberately, but unconsciously, sort of.
Yeah.
Stop this shit. Even if I have to die almost, I want to stop this. Mm. Something like that was going on.
Yeah.
But then I got on it, and I felt it directly.
This was the story that Wim and his cohort never wanted to see the light of day. To be clear, I've been telling this on my YouTube channel and online on Reddit as far back as 2017, but I regret caving to the pressure from his organization and not including it in the book itself. At the time, I rationalized it that I was writing about techniques that had changed my life for the better, and getting mired in the sordid personal details would just turn people off to the possibility of benefiting from the practices that he was teaching. What I didn't dwell on enough at the time was that some people would take Wim's teachings as gospel and follow his instructions without thinking, and that perhaps knowing how irresponsible he is personally with his own body might make them think twice about trusting everything he says, especially when some things he teaches can be deadly. This is particularly the case when people follow his instructions to do his breath work in the water. And I've done a lot of videos about exactly how this happens on my channel over the last 2 years as I catalog the deaths of 33 people. And you can go check out those videos at your leisure, but to summarize very quickly, while the Wim Hof method includes 2 basic practices, cold water exposure and hyperventilation breath work, it is critical to understand that you should never practice those 2 together. Wim Hof breathing allows you to hold your breath for long periods of time because when you hyperventilate, you blow off your CO2. And the body, it detects CO2 as the trigger for the gasp reflex. And because you're hyperventilating, Wim Hof breathing artificially lowers that indicator, and you're able to actually hold your breath for longer than you might expect. However, and this caveat is so important, when you hyperventilate, it can lower that set point to a place where you can run out of oxygen before you know there is a problem, leading you to pass out unexpectedly. And on land, it's not really much of a problem. You just wake up. But in water, it just means you drown, and very quickly.
I mean, I know anybody taking Wim's work and going into a pool and hyperventilating, you're just playing roulette. You're almost guaranteed at some point to go out when you do that.
This well-understood phenomenon is called shallow water blackout and occasionally also underwater hypoxic blackout. And while Inner Fire now posts a warning on all of their YouTube videos and online courses about the dangers of using Wim's breathwork and water work together, Wim Hof himself still frequently performs this very dangerous technique in his videos and his public lectures. Here's Paul Bowman again.
Wim Hof pushes customers and clients into doing the intensive breathing exercises in dangerous conditions. But the paradox is that's central to Wim Hof's product. Like, he pushed himself into dangerous situations. He's broken records swimming under ice. You're like, it's an inherently dangerous product, or his brand is inherently dangerous. But to sell that exposes yourself to all sorts of legal risk. So they backpedal and they try and step away from that, even to the extent where you get really contorted situations where in one of the courses that you can buy, the online courses, you see Wim Hof in a cold water lake with some of his students there, and he's saying to the guy, they're in the water, keep doing the breathing. And then there's a little note that flashes up saying, note, this is a cold water challenge. This is not a breathing challenge. Wim Hof is just helping him to focus. He's not saying it's almost like he's not saying keep doing the breathing, even as he's saying keep doing the breathing.
Indeed. Here is the very first video that Wim Hof ever posted online. And here he is before one of his many, many ice diving challenges. And once again, explaining how he's done the same thing, the same hyperventilation and submersion for 44 years.
So before was hyperventilating like what I did now?
I have done dozens of interviews with survivors and family members of the deceased, and I'm not going to subject you to all of their interviews, except from this one from a mother whose 21-year-old son died in her arms last year.
We had a whole life. It's a whole life interrupted, and it's just so effing tragic.
It is so effing tragic. None of this needed to happen. As a stuntman, Wim was used to taking risks with his life. But when he became a teacher, he continued to teach dangerous techniques solely for the purpose of gaining attention. And so many people died needlessly because of it. Which brings me back to Wim's personality. I saw it get worse over the years as he got more successful, but many people who have known Wim longer than me have said that the darkness, it was always there. In the last year, an independent reporting team at the Dutch newspaper De Volkskrant interviewed his ex-wife Carolina, who alleged that Wim used to beat her and even kicked her while she was pregnant with her son. To quote the piece, "He slapped my face, and then he dragged me through the room by my hair and tried to kick me in the belly. I was just about able to hide behind the couch, so his kick only grazed me." Her story was corroborated by court records and emails at the time. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice in the Netherlands said that they regret not following up on the case in more detail at the time that it happened. Wim was only sentenced to community service for abusing his son Noah. But that was hardly the first time that Wim was violent. Wim's own brother, Robert, has alleged that he saw Wim Hof beat his first wife, Olaya, and locked her in a closet when she misbehaved.
We found Olaya at the home crying, and she was in Holland, not speaking the language, and left alone with the children. Wim was outside, didn't leave any money. When he came back, he treated her very badly. My former girlfriend was a psychologist and saw everything. He beat her. And when she cried, he locked her up in the wardrobe.
For those who are aware of his origin story, Wim Hof often cites Olaya's suicide in 1995 as the basis for him becoming so focused on the cold to improve his mental health. He says that he was devastated by her death, and the cold brought him into a sense of normalcy and control. But Wim's own brother remembers the events differently.
She was making his life very difficult because she was always shouting at him and blaming him. So in a way, I think he felt relieved when she died. If it is a suicide or not, I don't have any clue about this. But I know he was relieved. It was not something that it was not an act that he said, oh, what a pity. No, it was relieved.
Indeed, Robert's memories are corroborated by an interview that Wim Hof gave to the Daily Mail just a few years ago titled, "My wife's suicide broke my heart, only the ice gives me peace," where he was quoted saying that she had recently asked him for a divorce and that there was violence in their relationship. After Olaya's suicide, Hof moved back to the Netherlands, and as I alluded to with his reunion with Michael, Hof left his children to raise themselves alone in a squat house.
No, and the children were grieving, and what I said, since 95 until 2003, they were abandoned, and in 2003 it was really alarming in Amsterdam that we found them like in a refugee camp.
He moved in with Caroline, who later said that he abused her. And I know that Wim Hof often says that he loves the people who do his method. He loves the people around him, and love leads the way. But what does Wim know about love with this in his background? Love is not a vibe. Love is taking responsibility for the people around you and the people you influence. The way Wim Hof uses love is just marketing for his courses. A lot of the details of those years are missing, and his inconsistent stories about his own birth and discovery of the method, they're all difficult to nail down. I only personally knew Wim after 2013 when I began interviewing him extensively and traveling with him and examining the science of his method. Wim Hof and Inner Fire say that the people who allege that Wim is violent against them are just in it for the money.
Anneke van Stoffelen, she is a hateful person, and she most likely has a screw loose in her mind. They have hate. This is hate and frustration.
They say that I turned on him 2 years ago in order to make myself more popular at his expense.
He made a whole series of videos about me on YouTube, the internet. He's just a YouTuber with a lot of stories, fabricated and all.
He has said similar things about other independent journalists too, in the Netherlands, in the United Kingdom, and in France, who have called his authenticity into question or written their own exposés. It's always the world against Wim. And there's been a little bit of an update to this. It's breaking right now as I put out this video, because one of Wim's strategies has always been to threaten the media with lawsuits. And he filed a lawsuit against Anneke van Stoffelen at de Volkskrant, alleging defamation for using Robert Hof's quotes, saying that he had abused his first wife, Olaya, and, of course, Carolyn Hack. Well, the thing is, just a week before this video came out, the court in the Netherlands ruled against Wim Hof, saying that de Volkskrant had done actually a great reporting job, and that Wim has to drop his claims and actually pay de Volkskrant's legal fees. So at least the courts are eventually getting it right and standing up to Wim's bullying against the truth. And there's one more thing. There's something here that Wim is missing, is that until my reporting came out, 33 people had died by doing his method in water. And after I made a little bit of a splash with a video that went sort of viral, well, no more people have died, which is a testament to the power of reporting truth over someone's self-delusion. What I can tell you for sure is that I sincerely hope that this is the last YouTube video that I ever do on Wim Hof. Since putting out my first criticisms of Hof 2 years ago, I have endured a near constant stream of abuse from his followers, and my book sales have plummeted almost 80%. I could have reversed course years ago and wooed back my audience and brought those book sales up and sold courses, but for me, the truth is more important than profit. I'm here to set the record straight and to let you know that I've done it in print as well, finally. This month, What Doesn't Kill Us has been completely revised to include the omitted material and bring the story of Hoff up to date. I spent a decade of my life devoted to him before finally realizing that the reality is different from the branding. And to some extent, I regret my role in helping make him more famous. At the same time, I also have to admit that I have benefited from the method, the things that I learned from him greatly. I am still enraptured by the power of breathwork and cold, and I have seen many people recover from difficult physical ailments by challenging themselves in different environments. I would still call myself an evangelist for breathwork and cold exposure. But, and this is so important, we don't need a charismatic madman to lead the movement anymore. We don't need to put Wim Hof on a platform of perfection. And so when I was revising the book, I had to straddle a careful line. On one hand, I preserved a lot of my experiences and enthusiasm with Wim in amber, still marveling at the wonder of those innocent days. But I've also grounded all of it in the gritty reality of what has happened before and since publication. I've set the record straight, and I'd love you to give it a read or a listen on the new audiobook. I'm curious to know if audiences today in 2025 and beyond are as enthusiastic about the complex and problematic truth of Wim Hof as they were with the incomplete but certainly inspiring version from 2017. I'd love to know what you think, because we live in a reality now where grifters have literally taken over the government. We have narcissists and anti-science demagogues setting health policy with hot takes that more often than not personally benefit their own pockets. While I was originally writing about health and wellness, I saw a space where it was possible to talk about unconventional approaches to human health. And that's why I promoted cold exposure and breathwork and so many other things. But the way I saw it is that these are complements to the advances of modern medicine, not replacements for it. But the bizarre thing about the last few years is that instead of parallel approaches to health, the griftiest versions of the for-profit wellness world have taken over. The nuanced conversation that I wanted the world to have when I found Wim has been completely overshadowed by the madness of dissent and conspiratorial thinking. The world turned against evidence-based medicine for the uncertainties of charisma, and this is the real tragedy of the current moment. I'm still trying to chart a course through it all where we can be open to new ideas without demonizing old ones. But the search for truth is hard. And I appreciate you for being on it with me. All right, so thanks for watching this video. And thank you to the people who directly support my journalism on Substack and Patreon. You brave souls are the ones who keep fiercely independent reporting alive on the internet. And if you aren't a subscriber, well, you can get my free newsletter where you get updates that you don't see on this channel. But if you want to be one and you can get stuff early, well, consider going to check out my work at sgcarney.substack.com. There's a link in the pinned comment down below. All right, well, that's all I have to say for now. From Pokey Bear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney. Hopefully does his last video on Wim Hof. Thank you so much for all of my supporters on Patreon and on Substack who make this work possible. The contributions you give keep this sort of independent journalism on the air, and I really just could not do it without you. If you want to get early access to my work and get your name on the honor roll right over there, please sign up at the links down below. From Pokey Bear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates.